All right. How are you guys today? I am here to read to you from chapter 9 of Pagoo. So again, in Pagoo, I'm going to read chapter 9. In your packet, you should be at page number 8. Looks like this, okay? And it'll have a picture of the two little birds up at the top here. And it starts with questions: what happened to Pagoo and traveling towers? And then question 2, how do tide pool sculpins avoid predators? Why was Big Head not feeling well? And why was the seawater getting saltier? So I want you to be thinking about those questions as I read chapter 9. In the background here, you can see a picture that I have up, and it's of one of the creatures that we're going to talk about. Okay? Chapter 9. The fish who had swallowed Pagurus, along with his landlady, 5 barnacles, and 7 shells of traveling towers, was Big Head Sculpin. And this right here is a picture of a sculpin, and you can see it right in there. His head was huge, and he had a mottled body where there were spikes and fringes and floppy and mossy parts. When he lingered near rocks or pebbly bottom or shivering seaweed, his colors would change to fit the scenery, and you could not tell which was which. If he did move, well, he could not be there. But just when you thought he was not there, then Big Head ate you. Sculpins had been sulking around like this for a long time. A sculpin was one of the dangers of tide pool living. He was to be learned about and forgotten, except deep inside with nerves all set for getaway action whenever he might appear. So nobody worried. Many timid creatures live in the sea, and most of them have their enemies, but always enough of them survive to carry on. Pagoo had been swallowed, just like that. However, luck was with him because the sculpin was not feeling well this morning. Big Head had been charged by a sea hare, and its powerful purple cloud had bounced him back like a blow in the face. He sulked in the weeds, still hungry, and then he spied traveling towers and the landlady. Fresh hermit. And barnacles, too. He would digest them all and later toss out the empty shells. So he charged with his mouth wide open. Ugh, what a rough lump. He dashed near the shore, and he heaved out traveling towers. Had this been a lesson to Pagoo? What lesson can be learned in the very jaws of death? Old instinct had gone deathly silent. What was there left to say? Pagoo was so confused. No part of this had been his fault. At times, some misfortune gulps you down, and you learn only one small thing. Pagoo had learned to be aware of such creatures as sculpins. And maybe this one lesson was quite enough for now. Well, the landlady, she had been confused as much as Pagoo. She had not seen Big Head coming, and when it was too late, well, it was too late. But that horn-headed fish had not held traveling towers for long. The landlady felt peculiar vibrations as the sculpin's front fins jerked and his tail lashed madly, carrying them on. And then violent shudders, and all the passengers were suddenly ungulped and not far from shore. The landlady was galloping when she hit the tide pool bottom, and she did not stop. She would get away from where sculpins cruised at the very edge of the pool, and she backed her apartment beneath a ledge where Big Head could not come. What an awful experience. The barnacles may have felt likewise, but they gave no sign. Everyone cleaned legs and feelers and all the hands of traveling towers sank into deep sleep, exhausted. So there's a picture here I also wanted to show you. That's a picture of sculpin eggs. So lots of eggs they lay in tide pools. But here's a picture, if you can see, of a sculpin. And he's pretty camouflaged. And this is like a rock ledge here. Lots of things will hide under there. So I'm imagining now that the landlady has squeezed herself underneath here because she's hiding from the sculpin. And look at how they camouflage even to match the shells that would be down at the bottom, which I think is really, really kind of cool. So Pagoo, well, he awoke first, and he noticed now that there was no water for breathing. Old pal yelled, "Oxygen!" Pagoo poked his head out of the door and into the dry rock. Backing under the ledge, the landlady had squeezed Pagoo's room against the cave roof, and he couldn't get out. The landlady awoke and noticed the changes. She shuddered. Was she still inside the sculpin? No, her feet were near seawater, but the seawater was growing stale and saltier as it dried up in the shallow shore pool at low tide. Shore, low tide. She lurched forward, half out of her shell. Her feelers waved in the empty air. Traveling Towers was stranded. She must move. She couldn't budge her house. Tug and strain as she might, she had done her job too well when scrambling under that rock. Traveling Towers was stuck, but stuck above water. Pagoo's penthouse was barely damp from the wash of the last low ripple. The landlady had not known Pagoo very well, if at all, but she could feel him up there rattling around, banging his fists on the walls. She had a hazy idea that he wanted to get out of there. Well, you know what? So did she. A clamor of curlews and sandpipers and gulls told that these birds were raiding the beach for tidbits left over by the tide. Curlews, walking with stately steps, ran their long curved beaks into holes after hidden squirreling food. Here's a picture up in the corner of your packet. There it is, of the bird, the curlew, with its beak. And they love to go after all the creatures that are left when the tide goes low. Sandpipers scuttled across the wet beach like sandy shadows. Gulls found clams and flapped and screamed with joy. Each clam tried to dig deeper into the wet sand. Its narrow foot poked down and then swelled up into a ball. The clam pulled its shell-covered body down to the ball anchor. The faster it poked, balled up, and pulled, the faster it sank into the mud. But gulls were quick. And many clams were caught. And when a clam was dragged out of the sand, it would tuck its foot in and its twin tubes for feeding and breathing, and it would snap its two doors shut. Inside, muscles pull on the shells and cause a lot of pressure, hugging the doors together. A gull caught a clam in its beak, and then it flew high with it and then let it go. And the clam, turning over and over, struck a rock and it almost seemed to explode. The gull would swoop down after it to feed on the clam meat. And other gulls soared up high, dropping its clam, not on a rock, but on hard sand. And still the clam broke open. Because of the tension of those pulling muscles, the shells of the clam would shatter inward with each blow it took. Meanwhile, the landlady of Traveling Towers was doing a desperate thing. As quick as a flash, she popped out from her shell. She spun around and clutched her apartment house with her claws. This way and that way she tugged. She pulled. She pushed, twisted, She was so anxious to loosen that thing that she forgot about her tender, unprotected rear end. The landlady's eyes still were sharp, and she saw the gull descending. Letting everything go, she backed into her shell and clamped her glove door shut. She did it all in one movement, as though she were a toy snapped in by a rubber band. The hungry gull teetered on the slippery stones, hunched over and peered beneath the ledge. Oh, a fat hermit was somewhere in that barnacle lump. He had seen it, her himself. She was one mouthful he was going to get. He gripped the rough lump of shells with his beak and he wrenched it loose. And up into the sky he flew with traveling towers. And here's the picture in the book you can see here of the bird right over here. And he sees her, and now he's got her and has flown up into the air. And down here, you can see the traveling towers right there, hiding underneath the ledge. It's kind of why I like this picture here on the desktop that is showing in the tide pool here. So lots of dangers, and now once they got swallowed by Bighead, Sculpin, now they're up in the air with these wonderful gulls, probably ready to drop and see what comes out. So we will continue, Miss Jen will continue with chapter number 10, and we will find out what happens with Pagoo and traveling towers. Okay. See you later.